So, how are you guys? Good? Good. Reviewing a bit where we've been and where we're going. It's interesting. There. First week we did kind of the introduction and overview of the class, and we talked about these three critical foci that I think are so important: the website, the customer outreach, and the expert advice outreach. And then last week we kind of talked about entrepreneurial ways of thinking, and did that assessment on the ways that you think and areas where you might be able to expand your horizons and think differently in the future, improve your entrepreneurial thinking. This week we will talk about a lot of different ways to ideate or come up with product ideas and then turn those product ideas into opportunities. That'll be kind of today's topic. Thursday, we're going to talk about differentiation and modular business planning, which won't actually take that long. And then we need to divide up and choose which projects you guys are going to work on. So you guys mentioned a bunch of cool ideas. I'm going to put them up all on the board on Wednesday, and I need everybody to choose which idea you want to work on. So we'll do that on Wednesday. What's that? Thursday. Yes, sorry. Thursday. So that's that. And now I will go grab the slides. So there's all kinds of sources for new ideas, for new products, new services. No one is any better than the others, but it's I think sometimes it's useful to try and tap into more than one idea source when you're coming up with new ideas for your product or service. Consumers, like I've said before, customers first, not second. A great source of new ideas for products is sample customers. Who's out there that you know that consumes certain products or services? What are they missing? What could be better? Definitely, consumers are a great source of ideas for new products. Existing products and services. So, taking a look at your competitors' products and services is also a great way to come up with new ideas for your own products. Identifying what works well about their products and services, what is missing, what could be added on, how it might synergize with other products and services. Taking a look at your competitors' products and really playing with them, not just going to the website once, but buying your competitor's product or service, like using it, really getting an idea for how it works and how it could be better, is another great source of ideas for new products. Distribution channels. Like I've said before about expert advisors, a lot of times the upstream and downstream distribution partners that you have for various products and services. Is that a hand up? Okay. The products and the distribution partners that you have for various products and services have a lot of prior experience in the industry. So, talking to people who, if you were going to start a new food truck, for example, talking to farmers about the consumption of their food by restaurants, by other food trucks, by fast food joints. Might give you some valuable insights into how you do your food truck better. Same way in the other direction. If you're starting a food truck, you might, well, food truck's kind of the end. Let me think of another example. If you are coming up with a new software app, then you also might want to talk with the stores or with the people from the App Store on Apple, or the equivalent to the App Store on the Android. They're responsible for distributing your software product to people who are actually going to buy it and use it. So getting input from the end consumer distributor, if you are a company which is upstream from the end consumer, is another great source of expertise. The federal government, the patent office is not just for registering your own intellectual property. You can find a lot of ideas just by browsing through the U.S. Patent and Trademarks Office's databases of patents and trademarks, taking a look at what's out there as patented ideas, what you might be able to do to build or add on to them. Google Patents is also a great source of that same information. But taking a look at what's already patented and already copyrighted out there, and then seeing what you can do, thinking about what you can do to build on it, to make it better. And then finally, research and development. Be cognizant of intellectual property, but don't poo-poo using someone else's facilities. So a lot of times, especially in our NSM&E school, students are hesitant to use the university's resources to do work on new products because they're afraid of losing their intellectual property to the university. They're afraid that for example, if you did work on a new product within the context of a company like IBM or Apple or whatever, people are often concerned that intellectual property will belong to IBM or Apple instead of to you. It's a legitimate concern, but the research and development capabilities of large companies or large universities are much more than you could ever do by yourself. So tapping into those resources and using them to come up with new product ideas is also a good source of new ideas. Methods of generating ideas. There's a couple different ones. Focus groups, brainstorming, brainwriting, and problem inventory analysis. Focus groups tend to have 8 to 14 participants. You kind of sit around in a circle, chat about a certain product or service. It's good both for idea generation and for screening of previously generated ideas. So once you've got, it could work either way. You could have a focus group that just talks about new software apps. I mean, in a way, the first class session in here was sort of a focus group. I mean, it's not really, you guys are larger than a focus group, but I asked you what are some new ideas that you have for products and services that don't exist yet, and we brainstormed a little bit about potential software apps that don't exist yet. So just starting with a certain question or certain topic for the group, like new software products or new restaurants. Better parking options, like one of the apps that we talked about. Just starting with a topic or a problem, and then challenging various members of the group to come up with ideas associated with that is one way. You can also take a previously generated idea, like a certain type of food truck, and ask people in the focus group, what do you think of this food truck idea? And get ideas on how to change the food truck, make it better, make it more responsive to the needs of the customers. Good uses of focus groups. Brainstorming. We've done a little bit of that in here too. The key thing about brainstorming is that you don't want criticism. The wilder the idea, the better. And you're looking for quantity of ideas, not quality of ideas necessarily. You want to come up with as many ideas as possible, even if they seem really crazy or off the wall. Just keep throwing stuff up there, and it's it's useful to riff off other people's ideas too. So once one person has an idea, we kind of did that in here. We talked about one kind of software product, and then other people said, well, you know, I've noticed this. Let's maybe we should do this kind of product instead. So building off of other people's ideas is an important aspect of brainstorming as well. Brain writing. It's kind of written brainstorming. You do it usually in a group of 6. So instead of calling out loud and putting stuff on a board, you're writing stuff down on a sheet of paper and then passing it on to other members of the group, who then add their ideas to the brainstorm ideas on the piece of paper. Problem inventory analysis. You start with an existing imperfect product and discuss problems. So that's another way to generate new ideas, is to take an existing product and just find all the ways that it's not perfect, all the ways that it could be better. So this is an example of problem inventory analysis for food, broadly stated. There's all kinds of different things about food that could be better, could be worse, depending on the type of food, where you get it from, et cetera, et cetera. So if we're really just dumping ideas about what could be better about certain types of food that we eat sometimes, there's psychological factors, there's sensory factors, there's activities, buying, usage, and psychological or social factors. And different of these areas prompt different thoughts about the problem inventory analysis. So in the psychological area, one thing about food is that you gain weight. It can be fattening. It can have empty calories to it. These are things that are not as good as they could be about certain types of food. You could be hungry. Certain foods can be filling, or you can still be hungry after eating. You can be thirsty. Does the drink in this case quench your thirst, or does it make you thirsty? Your health. Are there issues with indigestion? Is the food bad for your teeth? Does it keep you awake? What's the acidity level like? All of these are different psychological factors that one can come up with when thinking about problems that food might have. Sensory, so you got taste, appearance, and consistency or texture. Activities, meal planning. So this is a big one for me. I don't like to plan meals. I don't like to cook that much. It's too much work for me. So if the food is ready right away, that's a big plus for me. Storage. You can have two main problems with food storage. Either You run out of it because you don't have enough. You constantly have to go get more. I have that problem with milk all the time. I like milk a lot. And no matter how many gallons of milk I buy, there's a certain time when the last gallon of milk runs out and I'm sad because I don't have any more and I have to go to the store to get it. And then finally, and then the other direction, the package doesn't fit. I had that problem with soda. I drink a lot of soda too, so I finally got a soda stream machine. How many people in here have a soda stream machine or know what they are? Okay. So I got a soda stream machine so I don't have to keep putting cases of cans of soda in my fridge. It's much, much better for space. Huh? I probably go through about one a week. The cost-wise, it's not that much cheaper to use the soda stream machine than it is to buy cans of soda. It's just more convenient for the space more than anything.
Now I know, like 2 years ago, the brand that produces the flavors, they made the sizes smaller and more expensive.
Yeah, they got me on a hook. If they go smaller, it's still more convenient for me than having to buy cans of pop all the time. Preparation. So I don't like to cook that much. It's too much trouble. Too many pots and pans to clean up afterwards. Never quite turns out the way I want it to. Although I do make a pretty good stir fry. That usually turns out the way I want it to. But sometimes, the problem with cooking food is that you can't quite get it right. I think that's the problem a lot of times with baking. Baked goods are really tough to get exactly right when you cook. The actual cooking process, you can have burns or sticks, or stickiness to the pot or pan or tray that you're using. Certain foods make a mess in the oven. They can stink in the refrigerator. All of these different things are just a different form of brainstorming, a different way of pushing your mind to think about every way that things might be able to be better about food, depending on what kind of food it is. Portability, portions, availability, spoilage, cost, and then under psychological and social, would you serve at the company? Is it too much last-minute preparation? Is eating alone something you enjoy doing or you don't enjoy doing? And then self-image sometimes too. Is the food not served by a good mother, or made by a lazy cook? So some things about the image that you have of yourself or others from the food. So if we did this as an exercise, we would start with nothing down here and just these columns up here, and we would come up with ideas on what is bad or what could be better about a certain type of product or service based on those categories. Creative problem solving. So talking more about specific types of problem solving or creative activities. For brainstorming, you want to start with a problem statement that's not too broad and not too specific. So that tends to generate the best brainstorming results. When you don't have a problem like, you don't have a statement like, the shade of yellow on Microsoft machines is too light and it's hard to see. That would be a very, very specific brainstorming problem. Microsoft machines have bugs. That's too broad. It needs to be somewhere in the middle to be an effective statement to use for brainstorming. Reverse brainstorming. Criticism is allowed in this case. Usually you don't want to criticize in brainstorming. You just want to think of as many new ideas as you can. With reverse brainstorming, you start with the question, how many ways can this idea fail? And you're trying to come up with ways that it could fail instead of succeed. Not because you want to be negative, but because identifying ways to fail often will identify weaknesses in the product, identify opportunities to make things better in a different way than positive brainstorming. The Gordon method. Participants don't know the exact nature of the problem. They're just given a general concept associated with the problem, and then they discuss. So this is a more general way of generating ideas. You just give people a statement like, parking is a problem on campus. And then have people talk about what does that mean to them? I can never find parking in this lot at this time of day. I have to wait around too long for somebody to come out of a spot. So on and so forth. The checklist method. This is developing an idea through a list of related issues. So, for example, you could take a certain product or service and think about what other uses you could put it to, how you could adapt it, how you could modify it, how you could magnify it, how you could minimize or minify it, what substitutes you could find for it, how you could rearrange the composition of the product or service, how you could reverse it, and how you could combine it with other things. Just pushing yourself to answer questions in each of those categories about a certain product or service. And then free association. Write down word after word with each word attempting to add something new. So just free association of words, trying to add new thoughts every time you come up with a new word. More creative problem-solving techniques. Forced relationships. So you isolate elements of the problem, find relationships between the elements, record relationships in an orderly form, look for patterns in the resulting relationships, and develop new ideas from those patterns. So in this exercise, you force yourself to make a relationship between two different concepts or products or ideas, and think about all the different ways that those things are related to each other, different ways, different ideas that come out of the relationship between those two concepts. The collective notebook method. You distribute notebooks with a statement of a problem, collect them after a week, summarize, and then do a final focus group. So in this case, you just have a journal of some kind, and give people a problem statement like, what's a problem statement we haven't thought of yet? What's a problem statement? Don't everybody speak up at once. You guys have no problems?
Books are too expensive.
What's that?
Books
are too expensive. So you put books are too expensive in the top of the journal. Have people write about that topic over the course of the week. Then bring all those journals back together. Organize all the thoughts and put everybody into a focus group to talk about it. Attributive listening. You list attributes of a problem and look at each from various viewpoints. Another way of creative problem solving. And then the big dream approach. Set aside negatives and unrealisticness of resources needed. So in the big dream approach, just forget about ways that it doesn't work. Forget about ways that it's going to, forget about what the problems are going to be. Just think about the idea without the resources that you needed or the problems that are going to come up in trying to realize it. Different ways of coming up with creative ideas. An example of the forced relationships technique here, the word soap and the word paper. So how many different ways can you put together the word soap and the word paper? It could be papery soap, soapy paper, paper soaps, soaped papers, soap can wet paper, or soap can clean paper. And then depending on these relationships here, think about what ideas does that generate, where papery soap kind of seems like it would be flaky. Soapy paper, maybe that's a travel aid that you can wash and dry things easily. Paper soaps, tough paper impregnated with soap and usable for washing surfaces. So maybe a different way to distribute soap rather than in a bar format or in a liquid format, in a paper format. Soaped papers could be a booklet of soap, booklet of soaps rather than a package of individual bars. Soap wet paper kind of makes you think about coating and impregnation processes for various types of paper. And soap cleans paper kind of makes you think about wallpaper cleaner. So an example of the forced relationships technique. Moving on to talking about innovation. There's different types of innovation: breakthrough, technological, and ordinary. Breakthrough innovation is something that changes the entire paradigm of an industry or of a marketplace. The internet is an example of this. I mean, there's the entire world exists pre and post internet. The existence of an interconnected cloud of information is so game changing for so many things in our society that the initial development of the internet was a breakthrough innovation. Technological innovation are things like jet engines as opposed to propeller engines. So it's still an engine, it's still making planes fly, but it's a technological upgrade on the original technology that's being used to do something. So instead of propellers chopping through the air and pushing air, or pulling air from the front of the plane and pushing it back to the back, you've got a jet which sucks in air from the front and pushes it out the back with the jet instead of with the propeller. And then ordinary innovation, Spanx. So these are a particular type of tights. Just basically came from problems that the inventor was having with socks, and a new way to address those problems. Defining a new innovation, it doesn't have to be that different. So fashion jeans. Once upon a time, jeans didn't have. What's that? Well, yes, that too. But they didn't. There weren't such strong brand names attached to them either. Huh? Those brands have been around for a while, but I don't think they were marketing on brand 30, 40 years ago. Huh?
Levi, I think it was marketing based on their stitching. Was they doing something like that, like double stitch?
They did market on the sort of technical quality of the jeans.
No, not off the name.
Yeah, but the extreme focus on brand names was an innovation within the jean business. Walkmans were originally just a different way. It's the same way of using music. It's just portable instead of being in place. Decaf coffee. It's the same drink. You just take the caffeine out. And flip top cans. I mean, the type of bottle or can that a soda comes in. If you change just the packaging of that soda, that could be an innovation as well. It doesn't have to be something that changes the world. Classification of new products. You can classify them from the consumer standpoint and from the company or the firm standpoint. From a consumer standpoint, there's continuous innovations, dynamically continuous innovations, and discontinuous innovations. So continuous innovations are not very disruptive to the way that you're accustomed to doing things. You don't have to change anything about your behavior or your patterns as a consumer with continuous innovations. Dynamically continuous innovations, there's some disruption in your behaviors, but they're largely based on what your consumer behaviors used to be. And then finally, with discontinuous innovations, you're basically creating new consumption patterns for previously unknown products. So these are the more radical innovations. These are the more incremental innovations. From a firm standpoint, you can take a look at the level of market newness of a product and the level of technological newness of the product, and have various levels of innovation based on that. So in market newness, you can either have no market change, strengthened market, or a new market. And then in terms of technological change, no technological change, improved technology, or new technology. So each of those combinations represents some form of innovation, except for no market change and no the box here, no change of any kind, is not an innovation. But each of the rest of these is a different type of innovation. So no technological change, but a strengthened market. Re-merchandising, trying to increase sales to existing customers. That's a form of innovation. No technological change, but a new market. So new use for a certain type of product or service. Add new segments that can use your present products. Improved technology with no market change. Reformation. Change in the formula or physical product to optimize costs and quality. So you may make a better product, but otherwise have no change in the market. You're basically updating the products that people are using with a new and better one. Improved technology and strengthened market. Improved product, you can improve the product's utility to consumers, so it does more for existing customers than it used to. They're willing to pay more money because it does more things and solves more problems. Or improved technology in a new market, market extension. Add new segments, modifying present products. So So by making laptops that have an easy flip screen and tablet that you can write on, opens up certain industrial applications where there's a lot of drawing that has to take place. It opens that market up to laptops in a way that wasn't really such a segment in the past. So, market extension, improved technology with a new market. And then some of the most radical innovations from a company point of view: new technology with no market change replacement. So you're replacing an existing product with none based on improved technology. In a strengthened market, product life extension. Add new similar products to the line, serve more customers based on the new technology. So the new product may have a longer product lifespan. So you're getting more. In that case, you could charge more money, and you're getting more revenues from your current clients again. And then finally, new technology and new market diversification. Add new markets with new products developed from new technology. That's the most radical form of innovation from a company point of view. Product planning and development processes. These are kind of steps along a chronological process that you want to take in product development. The first element, establishing evaluation criteria. You need to establish, first of all, how you're going to decide which products are good, which are bad, which have market potential, which don't, et cetera, et cetera. So establishing evaluation criteria, they should be exhaustive and sufficiently quantitative to make screening decisions. So you need to have a large list of criteria that's going to cover all of the major factors or features of the product, and you need to have some way to give numerical ratings or quantitative assessments of the product in some way, so that you can determine which one is better, which one is worse. If you don't have a number system, then you just have a bunch of comments about the products without actually being able to decide between one and another as to which is better. Idea stage. Need and value lists for new ideas. So in the idea stage, you want to come up with as many lists of new ideas as possible. In the concept stage, evaluate both the idea's own merits and how it stacks up against the competition. So once you've selected from among many ideas, you want to take a look at, you've got a certain number of ideas that made it through the initial idea stage. The next thing is just evaluating how does that idea, what are the pros and cons of that idea for its own sake, and how does it compare to competition? The product development stage, consumer panelists test drive sample products and services. So this is actually getting a product out into beta customers' hands. I tend to focus on having this happen very, very soon in the process, with maybe just a website. You know, if you're developing if we talked about that app for new parking for organizing parking on campus. I mean, nobody in here really programs code, and we're not going to have an app until we have code programmers program the code. So rather than waiting until the app is finished to have people test and play with it, I am a big proponent of describing how it will work in a website, and then showing that website to a bunch of people and getting their input on, would you use this app when it exists? What other features would you like to see in it? Brainstorming with consumers sooner rather than later. And then your final stage, which is not always necessary, the test marketing stage. You don't have to go through this stage, but it can be really helpful for testing limited runs of advertising mix. So if you think that Google AdWords is going to be an important advertising platform, but you're not 100% sure, you can do a limited run of advertising your certain product or service on Google AdWords, see how it works, and then test it on other advertising platforms as well. So the idea stage again that I talked about here, need and value lists. You've got you've got one list for needs, one list for value. So the list for needs, you want to look at things like the type of need. Is it a continuing need? Is it a declining need? Is it an emerging need? Is it a future need? So once you've come up with an idea, these are the questions that you need to answer about new ideas when you're doing the new idea stage. So the timing of a need is, does it go for a certain duration? What's the frequency of the need? What's the demand cycle? So is it every couple of months or every year? What is the need for this product or service? And then what's the position in the life cycle of the product that you're going to come into? Competing ways to satisfy need. So are there ways that customers could do without the product or service? Are there ways that they can sort of utilize current competitor products in the way they're already utilizing them to satisfy their needs? Or is there some modification of the present way of using the product or service which is going to better satisfy needs? Perceived benefits and risks. So what's the utility to the customer of the product or service? What value do they get out of it? What are the characteristics of the product or service that are appealing? What are the customer's tastes and preferences that are related to the product or service? Buying motives, consumption habits. You want to answer all these questions about the idea. Price versus performance features. Price-quantity relationships. So is there a relationship between, is it relevant for this product or service to have volume discounts? Are you trying to get people to buy many of them, or is the nature of the product or service such that people only buy one? Demand elasticity. So how sensitive are people to price? If you increase the price a lot, are you going to drastically reduce the number of people who are going to buy, or do they have a need for that product even if it's more expensive? Stability of price, stability of market. Other questions that you want to ask about the price versus performance features. Market size and potential. So ask yourself for the new product or service, how is the market going to grow in coming years? What are some of the trends going on in the market? What are some of the development requirements that you need as a company to get into that market? What are some of the threats to that market from substitutes in the future, or threats to the profitability of that marketplace? And then finally, availability of customer funds. What are the general economic conditions with respect to the idea? Are there enough people that are earning a decent salary out there in the world to have a market for your product or service, or is there going to be are there going to not be enough people with enough money in their budgets to be able to afford your product or service? Economic trends, customer income, kind of related to general economic conditions, and then financing opportunities. If the product is very expensive, are there Are there ways that people can finance it to be able to make payments over time? Are there different partners that you would partner up with for financing, et cetera? So you want to try and answer all of those questions about the idea, and then, just like needs, answer questions about the value of the idea. So, cash outflows. How much are the research and development costs? How much are you going to have to spend on practicing writing code, on different versions of the code, on testing the software, on troubleshooting the software? How much are you going to really need to spend on developing the software product in terms of research and development? How much are you going to have to spend on marketing? You're going to have to spend a lot on TV advertisements and radio. Can you do it mostly with cheap word of mouth? How much is the marketing cost going to be? What are the capital equipment costs? So with software programming, capital equipment costs are relatively small. All you need is a computer. If you were going to be manufacturing a new, I can't remember if I mentioned this one in here or in my small business class, but I had a company in the community that was making a new kind of children's toilet seat. Did I mention that in here? Okay, it's a plastic seat that goes on top of a public toilet, so that the kid doesn't have to sit on the public toilet seat. It makes the space smaller so they don't fall in as well. But in order to make these plastic toilet seats, you need to have an injection mold that you inject plastic into, and it molds it into the shape of the toilet seat. And in order to make that mold, it costs like $10,000. So for capital equipment costs, when you're making a physical product of some kind, sometimes there's a big cost up front that you have to have for equipment to be able to produce it. And then any other costs that are associated with the idea. What do you think the sales of the new product, so for cash inflow, what do you think the sales of the new product are going to be? What's the effect that, if it's relevant, are the sales of this product going to have an effect on sales of your existing products? Is it going to increase sales of some of your other products because you're introducing a new one? And what is the salvageable value of the product? So if you have a bunch of extra products in inventory, can you, if you don't sell them all, can you sell them in a secondary market, or can you recycle them in some way? Is there a salvage value of some kind to the product or service? In terms of net cash flow, you want to figure out what your maximum exposure is. So what is the maximum amount of costs before revenues start to come in? How long is it going to take to get to the point of maximum costs? How long is it going to last that you have all these costs out there but no revenues? What's your total investment? So not just the maximum cost time, but the total from start to finish. And then what's the maximum net cash that you're going to have to put into the product or service in a single year? Profit. So what's the profit going to be from the new product? Does that profit affect additional sales of your existing products again? And what's the fraction of the total company profit that the new product or service would represent? Relative return. So there's a bunch of different statistics that we can calculate about new ideas, new venture prospects as well. Return on equity, return on investment, cost of capital, present value or net present value, discounted cash flows, return on assets employed, return on sales. These are all equations that we can calculate based on the amount of costs, the amount of revenues, and the time frame that it takes for certain ideas. Different different ways that we can calculate what the return is going to be on the project. And then finally, compared to other investments, how does this product or service compare to other product opportunities or service opportunities? And how does it compare to other investment opportunities in general, not just new products and services, but also existing products and services? That's the end of my lecture slides. What I'd like to do with the remaining time is I want to pick one of these and do a little exercise here in class. I'm trying to decide. You guys, is there any one of these methods that stood out to you guys as particularly interesting? Let's try the problem inventory analysis. So, what is an existing imperfect product that we could try and improve? Come on, guys. Somebody's got to come up with a product idea.
School desks.
School desks. So, in these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas, what are some things that are imperfect or could be better about school desks, psychologically?
I don't know how to word it, but maybe your posture has something to do with your brain, your train of thought.
Okay, so posture affecting thinking. How about some sensory things? So, how does it feel? How does it look?
Use some cushions.
Could use some cushions. How about activities that you perform with the desk? What's imperfect about it?
The surface could be bigger for.
Not made for left.
Huh? Yeah. The drink bottles don't fit. What was? I heard a voice over here.
I said it's
Yes, I have that same problem. So buying usage. I'll give this one a shot. Since the buyer of the desk is going to be us, Cal State, I think one of the problems is volume versus customization. We'd like to have a certain number of left-handed desks and a certain number of right-handed ones, a certain number of desks that have these 2 feet in the front, a certain number of ones that have no feet in the front, like yours. We'd like to have different types of desks depending on the classroom and the activity, but we get discounts for buying in bulk, so that encourages us to buy one-size-fits-all desks, which is what you see in a lot of our classrooms. Social aspects. How about something social about these desks?
What do you mean by
Huh?
What do you mean by
Well, I mean, your interaction, how do the desks impact your interaction with other people in this room?
Yeah, it's not really easy to have like a group conversation rather than like having one big table and
Yep.
everyone around it.
Don't facilitate group conversations. So, we could continue adding more factors here until we came up with a relatively long list of how to make better school desks. And then based on all those ideas, we would start, as we're going to do next week in this class, we'd build a website talking about all the different features we're going to have new about school desks. We'd start talking to not just Cal State, but other universities. We'd talk to high schools. We'd talk to grade schools. We'd talk to businesses that might need desks for meeting rooms of some kind. We talk to manufacturers of desks. We talk to experts, the people that have already made desks. We talk to them. We talk to in addition to the purchasing agent in various high schools or universities or whatever, we'd also talk to the users of the desks, so we'd actually talk to professors and teachers. If we could find a school supplies distributor or a school furniture distributor, they might have a good expert advice opinion on this, and we'd start getting that website out in front of people. And then based on what they said, we would develop a marketing plan. Competitive profiles, and environment analysis of the environment. Let me turn the screen back on here. There we go, it's starting to come in. So, going back from today's activity to the rest of the class. Based on the feedback, we take all these features of the new chair, put them into a website, get it out in front of all those different constituent groups like I talked about. So different university buying, purchasing managers, high school purchasing managers, grade schools, businesses. We talk to professors that use and teachers that use the desks, maybe an expert distributor, etc. We get all that information, and based on that, we come up with a marketing plan. You'll see here in future weeks of the class. Next week is web development, so next week we'll talk about web development, and your homework assignment will be to start working on the websites for your ideas that you're working on. And then the following week we'll talk about market plans and so forth. And after week 4, so after next week, things are going to diverge a little bit. I'm going to have lectures each week for a couple weeks to give you guys all of the rest of the information about the things that you need to come up with for your business plan. And you in the meantime, for your homework, are going to be talking to beta customers, talking to expert advisors, and getting their feedback. And then by October, hopefully we've gotten some feedback from experts, we've gotten some feedback from customers, and we can start integrating that into making the rest of the deliverables. And then by the end of the semester, we'll have what looks like a business plan for each of those ventures. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. It's a little early, but that's all I had to go over. Any questions? Okay, cool. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Yes. Groups for here? No, we're going to decide those on Thursday. Yep. No problem. Hey. Yes. Yes. No, in this class, it's a new idea. In the small business class, it's an existing business that we're going to do a project for. Make sense? We're creating a brand new company in here. We're doing a project for an existing company in the other class. Okay? Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Yes.
That entrepreneurial career plan, that's the half page?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that was the same thing.
It is.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Yes.
In email and LinkedIn for you to accept my you didn't answer. Just to make sure.
What is your name?
Khalil Dinari. Because you asked me to learn and LinkedIn.
Separate areas for the cheapest price, because if you get like packets, then they like overprice. Well, no, like our get all those.
Is this you?
Yes, sir.
And then book it into one week's shop.
That's funny.
It's like an agency that will do the whole. Yeah. For like the fashion and stuff. Or like for college students, it's like experience wise. For like people in retirement, it's like vacation home.
You didn't receive it.
No, I received it, but there was no place I could click to accept.
Oh,
Try and send it again.
okay.
Okay?
I will today.
Okay.
Okay. See ya.
Cool. See ya.
For the homework,
Yes.
paper, I write the topic reflection.
Uh-huh.
Okay, because I don't know what to write in the topic. Reflection is gonna be the best word for the career plan. The one you say, the survey we do.
Yeah, you do the survey and look at the areas that you're not as good at and think about ways that you can improve.
Thank you for the video.
Yeah?
I go back, yeah, that's what, I go back to Institute, I figure out what it was. Again, keeping in here, why you take longer, but it's okay.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you so
No,
much.
no problem. You're welcome.
Have a great day.